The average office worker sends and receives over 120 emails every single day. For decades, it has been the undisputed king of corporate communication. A system so embedded in our work lives that we assume it's permanent. But what if the biggest threat to this trillion-message empire wasn't a better version of email, but something that wasn't email at all? What if the strategy to kill email was to simply make it irrelevant? This is the story of Slack. Today, it's a communication titan, used by millions in over 150 countries and acquired by Salesforce for nearly $28 billion. But Slack didn't start as a challenger to Microsoft. It began as an accident. An internal messaging tool built for a small team of developers creating a video game called Glitch. When the game failed, the company, Tiny Speck, was on the brink of collapse. But they realized their little internal tool was far more valuable than the game they had failed to create. So how did this accidental chat app, born from the ashes of a failed video game, manage to infiltrate the world's largest companies and dethrone the king of corporate communication? The answer lies in a brilliant, counterintuitive strategy that completely flipped the traditional sales model on its head. This is the story of how Slack won, by starting from the bottom. To understand Slack's genius, you have to understand the world it was born into. In the early 2010s, enterprise software was sold one way, top-down. A salesperson from a giant like Oracle or Microsoft would spend months, even years, convincing a company's chief information officer, or CIO, to sign a massive, multi-year contract. The software was then forced down onto the employees, whether they liked it or not. The end user had no say in the matter. Slack's founder, Stuart Butterfield, knew this system was slow, expensive, and deeply flawed. He couldn't compete with Microsoft's Salesforce. So he didn't even try. Instead, he built a strategy around 3 core pillars designed to bypass the CIO entirely and turn employees into his secret sales team. The first pillar was a radical approach to pricing. Slack's main weapon wasn't a killer feature, it was its free tier. This wasn't a 14-day trial. It was a powerful, fully functional version of the product that a small team could use forever, without ever paying a dime. The only meaningful limitation was the 10,000 message search history. This was a deliberate and critical choice. The free plan acted as a Trojan horse. Any frustrated engineer, any marketing team, any group of employees anywhere in a company could start using Slack in minutes. There were no forms to fill out, no credit cards required, and most importantly, no need to ask the IT department for permission. This simple act of removing friction allowed Slack to flow into organizations like water finding cracks in a dam. It didn't need to knock on the front door and talk to the CIO. It was already inside, being used by dozens, sometimes hundreds, of small teams who had discovered it on their own. While Microsoft was busy selling Outlook to executives on the 50th floor, Slack was quietly building an army of fans on the floors below. It spread not through executive mandates, but through word of mouth. One employee would invite their team, that team would create a channel with another team, and the network would grow organically. This bottom-up adoption was the first critical step. Slack had successfully infiltrated the castle. Now, it needed to win the hearts of its inhabitants. The second pillar was an obsessive focus on user experience. Slack's team understood a fundamental truth: email is functional, but nobody loves it. It's a chore. Their strategy was to build a tool that people genuinely enjoyed using. In a now famous internal memo, Butterfield told his team, "We don't sell saddles here." He meant that they weren't just selling a tool for communication. They were selling a better, more efficient, and more pleasant way of working. They were selling a reduction in cognitive load, easier access to information, and more productive teams. The product was designed to be fast, intuitive, and even fun. They introduced emoji reactions, Giphy integrations, and customizable notifications. Every detail was polished to make the experience feel less like work and more like a seamless conversation. This relentless focus on the end user turned the product itself into Slack's most powerful marketing engine. People who used Slack loved it. It made their work lives demonstrably better. And when a tool makes your life better, you become its advocate. This created a powerful internal dynamic. As more teams within a company started using the free version of Slack, they would inevitably hit the 10,000 message search limit. The searchable archive became a critical repository of team knowledge, decisions, and files. Losing access to it was painful. Suddenly, the conversation inside the company changed. Employees weren't just using a free tool, they were actively campaigning for the company to pay for it. They became internal champions, going to their managers and department heads and making the business case for upgrading. The demand for the paid version didn't come from a salesperson. It came from the employees themselves. This leads to the third and final pillar, inverting the sales model. The traditional enterprise sales team hunts for leads and cold calls executives. Slack's sales team didn't have to. Their best leads were already using the product. Slack's customer acquisition model was, in their words, self-service. They built a powerful data analytics machine that could identify which companies had large clusters of free users. Their sales team wasn't tasked with convincing a company to try Slack. Their job was to call a company and say, "Did you know that you have 500 employees already using Slack, who have sent over 200,000 messages in the last month? They love it. Let's talk about how we can upgrade you to our enterprise plan to give your IT department the security and administrative controls they need." This approach was devastatingly effective. It completely changed the power dynamic. The CIO wasn't being asked to take a risky bet on a new piece of software. They were being presented with a proven solution that their own employees had already chosen, vetted, and integrated into their daily workflows. The risk was no longer in adopting Slack. The risk was in not adopting it and having hundreds of employees using a non-sanctioned tool without central oversight. The decision became a simple one. The product's value was already proven. The employees were already demanding it. Slack had created a tsunami of bottom-up demand that executives at the top simply couldn't ignore. And that is the secret to how Slack beat email. The strategy was never to build a feature-by-feature replacement for email. It was to bypass the entire system of how corporate software was bought and sold. Traditional enterprise software sells to the CIO, the top of the pyramid. The software is then pushed down onto employees. It's a system built on executive relationships and long sales cycles. Slack inverted the pyramid. It built a product so good that employees at the bottom of the pyramid chose to use it, for free. They created a user experience so addictive that these employees became passionate advocates. And they used data to harness that organic, bottom-up adoption, creating a wave of internal demand that was impossible for leadership to ignore. Slack didn't sell to the company. It sold through its employees. The users weren't the sales target, they were the sales force. And if that insight just clicked for you, take a moment to click the like button and subscribe so you don't miss our next breakdown. The brilliance of this strategy is that it redefined the entire playbook for enterprise software. This model is now famously known as product-led growth, or PLG. It's a strategy where the product itself, not the marketing budget or the sales team, is the primary driver of customer acquisition, conversion, and expansion. Companies like Dropbox, Zoom, and Calendly have built massive businesses on this same fundamental principle. If you build an exceptional product experience for the end user, they will become your most powerful growth engine. The core lesson from Slack's rise is a powerful one that applies to any industry. In an age of infinite choice, the best way to win is to stop selling to people and instead start creating something that people genuinely want to use. If you can turn your customers into your champions, you create a competitive advantage that is almost impossible to overcome. They didn't just build a chat app. They built a movement from the inside out. If you learn something new, hit the like button and subscribe for more strategy breakdowns. And let us know in the comments, what company's strategy should we unlock next?